in the first series where introduction we had a very brilliant presentation and a discussion as well as a sharing of stories by Professor Pant, and it was quite a interactive and quite a lively session we had. And now followed by this, we are going to have a session on the theories of leadership. Dr. Sudhanshu Bhushan has agreed and he is with us for discussing on this topic. And then next we are going to have leader, that is on 22nd, we are going to have a presentation by Dr. Kumar Suresh and Professor Karnan from the Baroda University. And then last session we are going to have a presentation from Rahul, myself, and Vikas also might join. On the one is on the fourth industrial revolution and impact on the leadership, challenges of leadership. Other is very interesting topic has been chosen by Rahul Agarwal, who has worked on the neuroscience and leadership. That's another aspect of it which is there. So last session would be on that, and we will be wrapping up this module on 29th and 22nd. We are going to launch module on planning. And I must share with you that luckily we have got a person who has drafted the institution development plan on behalf of University Grants Commission, Dr. A.C. Pandey, and the person who has worked on the institution development plan, Dr. Verma, Yogendra Verma, both have agreed to be with us on the interactive session. So the next module is also going to be very interactive and very useful, because the persons who are drafted on behalf of UGC are going to be with us. So that's going to be very evident. We are going to announce the next module in another few minutes, on 22nd, but we'll be sending the announcement for the next module also in next few days, so that those who want to join the particular module, they can join the particular module, but that's going to be very useful. And then we are going to work on third module, that is on finance. There work is going on. Farkan has agreed to be with us on that, and many other people will join us. So with this background, we will continue to discuss on some of this aspect. May I request Dr. R.C. Sharma to introduce Professor Bhushan and start the proceedings.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, friends. We welcome you to the second interactive session for this course on International Diploma in Education Leadership, Higher Education. And I'm very happy to welcome all of you and introduce Professor Sudhanshu Bhushan. He's a very senior professor and head of the Department of Higher and Professional Education at the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration. Let me briefly introduce him, because his achievements are so vast that it will take a lot of time for me to narrate all this.
Many other people are also joining us.
Yes, in the meantime, our friends, they can keep joining. So Professor Bhushan's specialization in internationalization of higher education, the various very serious topic of policy issues in higher education and education planning. And his recent contributions include quality assurance of transnational higher education. And as we know,
Gogoi is also joining. Many people are joining.
In the recent times, due to globalization, internationalization of education, it has become a very important issue. So he has worked on the quality assurance aspects of inter countries experience in that way, and public finances, deregulated free fees in Indian higher education system, restructuring higher education in India. He has edited books on teaching and learning in higher education in India.
Is also joining.
And Australia, which has been published by a very reputed publishers, the Routledge. His book on future of higher education in India, I strongly recommend that all of us should read that. has been published by Springer, and currently he is conducting and guiding research work, providing policy support to the Government of India. He is a proud recipient of Amartya Sen Award 2012 for being a distinguished social scientist, an award instituted by Indian Council for Social Science Research, New Delhi. And in addition to that, he is managing editor of the very famous, very prestigious Indian Economic Journal. So with this brief introduction, I welcome you, Professor Bhushan, and request you to...
Deepak Sharma is joining. Quite a few, like 8 number of people, many people have joined. I think Gogoi and other people have must have shared the link with other people also, and many good people, number of people have joined. Good.
Okay, thank you, sir. Over to you.
And still they are joining.
Okay, Professor Bhushan, may I request?
Still many people are joining.
Yeah, okay. So, should I begin, sir?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So, good evening, friends. I must thank Professor G.D. Sharma for launching such a very, very prestigious diploma program in higher education. It is the need of the hour. I mean, quality diploma program in higher education is the need of the hour, which he has initiated. So, thanks for providing me the opportunity to interact with such senior leaders of higher education. Well, I must confess at the outset that I am not an expert in management or educational management. And particularly before all of you who are the leaders in the sense that you are heading an institution, and particularly before Professor Pant and Professor Sharma. But I will certainly, based on my experience and the one paper which I have recently written on leadership, I would like to share my ideas and would like to interact and would like to learn as well from all of you. So there is some disturbance from somewhere. Has everybody muted? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay. So, based on my experience, I would like to put forward my views. The whole presentation will be in 3 parts, and I had already listened to the first lecture by Professor Pant, in which he is motivating all of you to really prepare yourself or ourselves for the future technology, because if we lag behind technology, perhaps we will not be able to catch up with the changing 21st century demand of higher education. I would like to make my presentation in 3 parts. In the first part, I would like to deal with 2 theories of leadership, which I call the rational models of leadership. One is the bureaucratic leadership, which is inspired by the idea of sociologist Max Weber. And another is the deliberative leadership, democratic leadership, distributive leadership, whatever you may call, which is inspired by another philosopher, Habermas. So how these 2 rational models were conceptualized by both the philosophers, Max Weber and the Habermas. So I will discuss these 2 rational models, and I will also like to make a critique of these 2 rational models, and then based on the critique, I'd like to suggest the way forward. So that is going to be the first part, the exhaustive, and I would like to have an exhaustive discussion on those 2 types of leadership, theories of leadership. In the second part, it will be divided into 2. First, there is from National Education Policy, there is a call for multidisciplinarity. I mean, multidisciplinarity is said to be one of the central ideas of National Education Policy. We have not had any position paper, perhaps, although recently something has come up from UGC. So I think this is a big agenda of how do we become multidisciplinary, and agenda for universities, for colleges, and there are so many challenges. So I would like to discuss how to take a leadership role in really implementing multidisciplinarity. And the second is guided by my personal experience. I conducted a student satisfaction survey, and in that I found that there are roughly 50% of the new students, new generation of the students who are the first generation learners, and for whom any standard pedagogy, any standard model of governance, any standard model of teaching, etc., really fails because of the deficit, cognitive as well as psychological deficit and the sociological deficit from all that. So now that we have that generation, first generation learners, and that you might also be confronting in your respective institutions, what can be done for them? And I will sketch the details of their difficulties in the educational institutions. So what kind of leadership we should really evolve to be to really follow a learner-centered approach. And my concept of learner-centered approach is different. My concept is anthropocentric. I mean, understand the learners, their background, and then devise the teaching learning strategy. So these are the three parts in which I would like to discuss the whole idea with you. And any one of you can raise any point, at any point of time. There is no such restriction. Let me begin first with what does National Education Policy talks about the leadership. It says the following thing. It says that outstanding institutional leadership is important for the success of an institution. And therefore, if we want to promote excellence, then it is possible if we motivate and incentivize outstanding and innovative teaching, research, institutional services, and community outreach from faculty members and higher education institution leaders. So it says that if merit-based institutional leadership exists and self-governance is promoted, the optimal governance can be ensured. So an essential feature of a good leader is a must have social commitment, teamwork, belief in plurality, ability to work with diverse people, a positive outlook, and a commitment to uphold institutional value. Therefore, I would say that in so many words, it says that a leadership must have multiple qualities and values. And if we could really select a good leader, then the institutional excellence, promotion of excellence is possible. And therefore it says that the demonstrated leadership and management skills will be identified and trained. And it says that the high-powered board of governors shall be established who will select persons of proven leadership and so on. So this is what is the message that comes from the National Education Policy. Some of the two recent initiatives of the Government of India had been a LEAP program, Leadership Development Program, and in which in fact NIPA was also chosen to launch a LEAP program. So 2 rounds of whole 3 weeks programs have been undertaken and the whole idea is that those who are the institutional leaders, that means commanding some position as heads of the department, very senior professors and deans who have so many scopus academic work, they will be selected, and the first round of training had already been completed. So the whole module is 2 weeks in India, 1 week in any foreign university. And the second round had begun, but it could not be completed because of the COVID situation. Another is CALM, which is again institutional leadership institutions which were established in the University of Punjab, I think Aligarh Muslim University and TIS. So these three institutions were given the responsibility to develop leadership development program. So such is the demand. The central point that I am trying to say is that in a complex system of governance that we live today there is no simple system of governance, because there are various outside factors, environmental factors, internal factors. Controlling all of them is becoming very, very difficult for any institutional leader. And there are structural problems. I am very well aware, the shortage of teachers, infrastructures, etc., etc. Amidst all these odds, now there is a call, there is a message in the national education policy that there is an importance of an agency. If agency wants, then perhaps in terms of leadership, it can become the change agent. That's why the whole leadership is very much being emphasized in today's context. Now, having said that there is a very, very important role to the agency of heads of the institutions or the leadership, there are two important ways in which leadership has been conceptualized. One is the bureaucratic model of leadership. Now, and the whole idea of bureaucracy, etc., was given by Max Weber. And what is this bureaucratic model? And I call both these a rational model. And then I will give a critique of rational. So what do we mean by rational bureaucratic model? What we mean is that governance takes place through rules and regulations. That governance takes place through creating a channel of communication, that there is a superior and there is a subordinate, and superior brings out various policies, various rules, regulations, etc. And within the framework of these rules and regulations, the institutional governance takes place. This is very briefly, this is the bureaucratic model of governance, and many of you as a leader do govern institution in terms of bureaucratic model. So the message of the bureaucratic model basically is that of control and command. And it basically means that if this control and command is disobeyed, then there is a rule for punishment, then the punishment will take place. And if someone who follows the rules and regulations, there will be a scheme of incentives to be given to such follower of rules and regulations. So basically it is this model, and within this model of control and command and regulation and rules, University Grants Commission, we all have had the experience of University Grants Commission really maintaining the standards of higher education institutions. University Grants Commission sends all of you the regulations, whether it is with respect to recruitment, essential qualification of teachers, promotion, or quality of PhD, supervision, etc., etc., etc. And within that framework of regulation, all institutions really work within that framework. Now, this is a rational model, but my understanding is that this rational model, this command and control model, basically conflicts with the very idea of university. What is the idea of university? Idea of a university, as we have so far understood, are two things. One is the freedom, and another is the unity of teaching and research. How do we maintain unity of teaching and research, through which we excel and we improve the quality of teaching and research? But the basic fundamental idea of a university is that teachers must be given the freedom. Without freedom, it is very difficult to make new initiatives, to innovate, or to do certain new things, to change or to improve our programs. If the freedom is not granted, then perhaps the very ethos, the very idea of the university cannot run very smoothly. That is the message from the university. Now, the problem over a period of time that we have confronted is the conflict between this freedom and the control model. On the one hand, we find that there is a control model, bureaucratic model, which is operating. On the other hand, there is a call for freedom. And basically, we have not been able to find a balance between control and freedom. Perhaps the reason could be the lack of trust between the two parties, between the state party and between the academic party or academic community. There has been a lack of trust and again the reasons for this could be many, but this lack of trust has resulted into a conflict, and we have not been able to fine-tune how much of control is necessary, how much of regulation is necessary, and how much of freedom is necessary. Perhaps it is this very good balance which has been created in American universities, European universities, which is a system based on mutual trust, and therefore regulations have not been very much impinging, very much intervening, and the academia within their own domain have been working with great freedom, whether it relates to making a collaboration with other institutions, write and publish papers in collaborative manner, do teaching and research in collaborative manner, introduce any programs. Perhaps academia have got much greater freedom. The state does not really ask too much, or there is not too much of control. In Indian situations, we do not have. So there has been a conflict. Therefore, my simple proposition is that because for whatever reason we have not been able to strike a balance, perhaps we have been living in a system where there has been more and more of control, less of a freedom, and therefore this bureaucratic model of governance has, I will not say failed, but has not really succeeded to provide excellence in teaching and research. Academia have been feeling, principals, heads of the institutions have been feeling that there is too much of guidance from above. So, for this reason that I feel that bureaucratic model of governance needs really a reshuffle, and we need to think in terms of another mode of governance. Now, what could be another model of governance? Now, this idea again comes from another philosopher, Jürgen Habermas, who is a philosopher, and he has written lots of books on the rational communication. And the basic idea And that is also true in the context of democracy. Democracy also should not be too much rules and regulations driven, bureaucracy driven, or top-down model of governance being imposed in a democracy. So another idea, alternate idea that comes from Habermas is that try to develop a democratic institution, democratic state, where there is a greater role for deliberation, communication, and whole epistemology behind this. Epistemological understanding is that the objectivity of knowledge comes not from my mind, what I know, but the objectivity of or the truth comes from others' mind. So what others speak, what others communicate, and in that communicative process, whatever comes out perhaps is the truth, perhaps is the knowledge which is objective, which is free from bias and so on. So it is based on this rational communication that he provides, and that is the philosophical basis of the deliberative kind of a democratic or a whatever you may call distributed kind of a leadership. So one is the model of transactional leadership or the bureaucratic leadership. Another is the model of, you can say, in a way, transformative leadership, deliberative leadership, democratic leadership, and so on. Now, certainly, the democratic institutions want to have a freedom. So, as I said, in bureaucratic leadership, freedom, there is a loss of freedom. And Weber has also argued that loss of freedom has led to disenchantment, disinterestedness among the teachers. Because if my freedom is gone, then my interest with the academics, my interest with the teaching and research. I have taken certain initiative, some lecturer, some teacher has taken certain initiative. He goes to the principal that please approve this, and this will, this will make a change in the life of the institution. But the principal said, citing the rules and regulations, said that no, I can't give this kind of a freedom to you. What happens? What happens is that in the minds of a teacher, some disinterest, some disenchantment takes place, and that disenchantment leads to the withdrawal, leads to the disengagement from the academic institution. So loss of freedom has really costed the institution in this sense. Therefore, Habermas says that it is necessary to provide freedom to communicate, freedom to express, create an environment, a culture in the institution where institution becomes a, what can you say? He has also used the term public sphere. Institution becomes a public sphere as opposed to private sphere, where in the public sphere there is rational communication, freedom of ideas, freedom of expression, and out of that freedom we deliberate and come to certain conclusion, whether it relates to the introduction of a program and so on and so forth. Now, is this a good rational model? That is the question. This may be certainly a good rational model, no doubt, as opposed to the bureaucratic leadership. But we need to understand what, and therefore the term he uses is that we need to create a discourse. That discourse will settle many things. However, what is the principles of discourse laid out by Habermas? The principle of discourse is that everyone must have the same chance to take part and to act in the discourse. Everyone should be able to pronounce his or her values and have them critiqued. Everyone must speak honestly and authentically. All participants must have equal chances to articulate their values and critiques. to order, to resist, to permit and to forbid, to account and to call to account. Now, as you can easily find out that these assumptions really do not hold in actual practice. Do we have a rational communication where there is freedom to express? You might find that there is some dominant person, some dominant individual who dominate and take away take away the whole discussion. So actually discussion may be, discourse may be hijacked by somebody. There is also a hierarchy within in a given institution. So that hierarchy, that patriarchal system that we have may lead to the loss of communication, may lead to a situation where those who are dominant, their voices may prevail, and therefore, in fact, the rational communication that Habermas talks about, the free public sphere that Habermas talks about, may really not exist in the system, which you may find even within your institution, in any college or the university. You might find that there is some dominant people. If there is a meeting of, say, court or the Senate, you might find that there is some political party or some ideology or etc. may dominate and may hijack the whole discussion, and the academic discourse in the true sense may not really take place. Therefore, what I am trying to say is that Habermasian model of deliberative democracy, deliberative institutions, democratic institutions, etc., may also fail. And you might also feel, I mean, there are all sorts of people. There are people who believe in bureaucracy and they will have a control model. There are people, institutional heads, who believe in democratic type of institutions, deliberations, etc. But the fact of the matter is that both may fail. Both may fail because if in the first case you do not guarantee the freedom and therefore you are not able to excel. In the second model, you want to implement the freedom, but what happens is there's some dominant voice which may prevail, and they may hijack and the whole discussion, and therefore the whole decision-making exercise becomes therefore very, very complex. I would like to stop at this point, though I wanted to say certain more things. But before giving any clue what I am going to say next, if I could have your point of view on these two types of leadership in terms of your experience, and how do you deal, how do you make a balance between these two, and then perhaps I would like to proceed further.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with the questions, or go ahead with your ideas.
Myself?
No, I'm asking the question. Let me invite Bevan or Usman.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have just one observation. You mentioned about the academic freedom, the limited academic freedom in the bureaucratic model of leadership. Now, we require some standardization in higher education. In the university system, some standardization is required. So in that context, can we allow unlimited academic freedom to teachers? Then what will happen to the standardization? Because standardization of the content, standardization of degrees, standardization of knowledge, this may be required. So how we address that?
Okay, may I respond to this?
Okay, as you like. If you like another question.
No, first let me respond to this.
Okay, go ahead.
Because this is something very realistic and very important question. See, there was a
fundamental point has been raised by him.
Yes, and I'm going to answer that. There was a philosopher who has written in political philosophy called Isaiah Berlin. In the 1920s, he was in Cambridge. He had given two concepts of freedom. First is the positive concept of freedom, another is the negative concept of freedom. What is the positive concept of freedom? Positive freedom is the freedom where freedom is treated as an intrinsic value, and therefore you have some sort of an absolute freedom to get that. For example, you may say, even that is controlled, you may say, however, that in a fully Ramrajya kind of a society or democratic society, fully developed democratic society, the right of expression must have an absolute value, must have the intrinsic value, and therefore I must have the positive freedom to exercise that right of freedom. Now he also gives another concept of negative freedom. What is negative freedom? He says that freedom in a positive sense is hardly possible. It is only possible in a very ideal, perfect society. In the society in which we live, it is the negative freedom that matters. What is negative freedom? Negative freedom is the freedom which is coerced by others. Why? Because if I exercise my freedom, it is quite possible that my freedom may negatively affect somebody else's freedom. Therefore, my freedom has to be restrained, has to be constrained in order to protect the freedom of others. Therefore, the negative freedom is the much fundamental value. For example, even in the fundamental rights in the Constitution, you find that you have been given all the rights of freedom and so on. But there is a clause which impinges that freedom as well under certain situations. Therefore, your question is that in a bureaucratic model, some sort of a standardization is necessary, and therefore unlimited freedom cannot be granted. I fully agree. It is only a negative freedom which holds in actual practice, which means that my freedom for academic activity has to be restrained. But what extent, in what area, how much freedom, that cannot be theoretically answered. That cannot be answered in terms of certain principles. That can only be answered by practical deliberation, by practical wisdom, by practical rationality. So my point is that we need to deliberate how far standardization is necessary. Yes, you are right that for such a large system, standardization is necessary. But should we standardize to a higher extent, to a lower extent? To what extent? Should not universities have the academic freedom to frame their syllabus? Now, should not PG heads, departments not have the freedom to frame their syllabus? Why should it come from certain outside influence? So those things can be deliberated, and after deliberation only perhaps we can come to the conclusion to what degree standardization should take place. That is my answer to your question.
Yeah, I think Dr. Bhushan, there is a issue which he has raised, and there is a very delicate issue. Delicate issue in the sense that when somebody wants to express, and those who are maintaining the standards, they sometimes fear that, look here, he is trying to break the standards. But unless you allow a person who is questioning the standard itself, then your new standards would be set up. What happens that most of the time, when the standards are well defined, well stated, and are working very well, and somebody comes and interjects with the idea that I have a different viewpoint, and those persons who are leading this, heading the system at that moment of time, if they do not have another view, that let him express, but it doesn't mean that I will accept it. It doesn't mean it should be accepted. But expression of different ideas should not be feared, because it may attack the existing system. That's what Prof. Usman, I would like to say, that it's a very delicate. Because often I know that as soon as a person who comes with a different idea, we fear that our standards, the things is going to disturb. The sea is going to be disturbed. So we say, no, stop here. Yes, I understand your point. Okay, let's go ahead. But at that moment of time, leader's role is becoming very crucial, where you allow expression, but at the same time, you do not really react and say, okay, let's see and examine what to be done. And that's a very fundamental question you raise. I think that's a real life situation. I tell you many times, by fearing that it is attacking either individual or the system, we stop a person. And then that a question which is how long, how short, that's a very delicate point and very complex point. I'm glad you raised this issue, which is a practical one. Welcome to Vikas, we'll come to you later. Let me have another question from Vivan, and then we come to this. Vivan?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, I really like the talk on leadership. But for me, I think a leader is one who is able to form other leaders. I believe in that, especially in an institution. The leader is one who is able to really understand the mindset of maybe his co-workers, a mindset of the students, and then realizing from there, taking the potentiality that is there among his co-workers and among his students, and then be able to form them to be able to be leaders in the future. I really appreciate leaders who are able to understand the mentality of the students and who is able to also get along with the students. That is what I also, as a leader of an institution, try to bring about. Love what your co-workers love what your students love. For example, if your students love to see you dancing, I think you should dance in front of the students. If they see you, if they love singing, you should also sing along with them and being there along with them. I think that is the importance of a leader. A leader is not somebody who put his maybe his fact or what he wants into, or one who is looking, for example, his own name and fame. Actually, it is not a person who looks for one's fame, one's name, who is a good leader. Actually, he should also look at the overall of an institution. Looking only for, if the result is good, it is not the students who get the benefit out of it or who get the credit, or the teachers get the credit. He takes all the credit for himself. I think that is not at all a good leader. A good leader is one who is able to give praise maybe to the teachers and appreciate what the teacher has done. But more than anything else, I believe that a leader is one who is able to get along with his co-workers, get along with his students, and love what they want.
Okay. You have basically talked about the transformative leadership, which is very good. Gandhi was a transformative leader. He created leaders and leaders and leaders. Yes. Now we have Dr. Bhavri and Dr. Vikas later on. Dr. Bhavri, would you like to make some observation? Dr. Vikas is waiting. Dr. Vikas, go ahead with your question.
Okay. My name is Vikas Sanyal. I know some of you, but not all of you. It's a big group, 20 people, I think, who have joined here. Prof. Sudhanshu Bhushan, Budin Gogoi is one of my oldest trainee participant. Okay, from different states. That was fun. Oscar. Uda Fukan, I don't know him very well, but Uda Ramtiari, Sharma, and 19 others. Now, my name is Vikas Sanyal. I am one of the beginners of this course with Dr. Sharma, and I had been responsible for this IDELHE program jointly with UNESCO International Institute for Educational Planning. We started the program in what year? We did 1987, no.
2013, 14.
Yeah, 2013, but working from 1987, the time he joined the NEPA. At that time I was already advisor of the industry, and I was working with NIPA. And he just joined, and I said, look, let us work together in the SEED, Socio-Economic Development Program in Mandi. Didi, I'm so sorry to hear about all these accidents in this area. I hope nobody known to you is affected, but I was thinking of Minal Manchi because they travel a lot, and Minal was in Dehradun at the time. Okay. That's it short. I'm talking about the leadership issue. You know, the thing is, for me, leadership is transformative, as Didi had said. It is being transformed now because leadership has come to all stages of the decision-making process. It starts with the system, the ministries, the departments, the sections. All these people, they have been led by somebody who can give them the team spirit, who can give them the inspiration, entrepreneurial skills. We have to evolve every moment because we are changing every moment. Dr. Pant Master said about it, that we are now evolving our ideas of leadership because we are no more dictating from up downwards, but we have to bring everybody in the group to participate in that as a responsible person. Now, let me talk about the entrepreneurship skills. With the entrepreneurship skills, we have got to develop an idea to how to make ourselves useful for the society externally with all kinds of partnerships, team spirit, and all the other qualities that bring all the people together at the same place. Now, at the system and ministry level, ministers have to be also trained in our program. Ministers also have the orientation session, DD, we think about it. And then we go to the departmental heads. Yes, they are also we join together. Somebody was saying that we have to bring them together also. And then the individual faculty level, then the students themselves. Because what are the students, what they have to do in the process of developing new skills, skill development programs, the vocational training. At the professional level, the AICTU, the professional institutions, they have to be also trained. So I'm saying that the leadership cuts across all the levels of the higher education system. So we are to be involved in each case and to lead the people. To lead the people in the sense that to be working with them, with team spirit, with entrepreneurial skills, development programs. So, Didi, I think I shall stop here now. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Didi.
Okay. Thanks, Vikas, for sharing your ideas. Very good. It's all through. Everybody has to work for the leadership in higher education and entrepreneurship, the point which you did. Dr. Sakya, would you like to make some observation? Unmute yourself, yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sudhanshu sir already mentioned institutional leadership. It is a nice concept because I am a principal of the SSK college. So it is a new concept, institutional leadership. So one question, exactly not question, I want to know, Sudhanshu sir, how institutional leaders success by overcome different problems of institutions. In institutions, different problems arises. How a institutional leader success by overcoming different problems.
Okay, good, very good. Sudhanshu, would you like to respond now?
Well, very briefly, see, the world of practice is a very complex system. Okay, and for a complex system, no theories, no principles really work. Let me tell you, howsoever I am, Professor Vikas Sanyal may talk about transformative or distributive or democratic leadership, the practical situation has to be handled by your experience. That I think is most important message I would like to give. I can't give you any formula. There is no formula of success. If there is any formula of success, I think it is the experience. Now, added with the experience, what you should try to do is try to get the experience of others. I mean, try to be someone who shares problem with others, with your colleagues. Allow them to communicate, allow them to deliberate, and then you will find that this problem is not your headache, is not your something which is upon your head. You allow that to spread over, and then you will find that everybody becomes an engine of growth. Everybody becomes the agency to take up your problem. Okay, so my answer to your question is no formula is there. There may be various problems which may not be even within your control, I know, but there are certainly which may be within your control. Use your experience, use your practical wisdom, and allow others to share your problem. Everybody should become a participant of the problem. I think that is what I can say. Perhaps Professor Vikas, Professor Sharma would like to add.
No, that's very wonderful. Idea which you said, there is no single formula, that's very correct. But at the same time, you know, what are those things which have come from over a period of time by learning? Because whatever theory and etc. you see, they are not out of head, but they are out of experiences people have experienced. They only help you in terms of framing your own experience in certain broad parameters and then relating. So there is no single, you can say I'll become this. No, it is a kind of, there is a bunch of flowers of different theory, different ideas. Depending on a particular situation, they might help you. These ideas are very helpful. But ultimately, because ultimately you have to take out of the knowledge bank which you will have. Knowledge bank is two types. One is you learn from the books and other thing. Other is you learn from the people talking. Third is learn from the experienced people. That becomes a knowledge bank. When the issue comes to you, that knowledge bank helps you, and you have this and solving the problem. Problems are to come, and problems have their own solution. Let me tell you frankly, no problem is without solution. That is a theory. That problem has a solution, and that's why that is a problem. Otherwise, that is not a problem. Yes, because you wanted to say something?
Yes.
Briefly. We have to give a chance to because
one important missing. Failures. Experience gives you how do you fail, how to avoid failures. Failures are the pillars of success, remember. That's the experience that we get from our leadership training. But you must recognize what makes you fail. These are the factors that you must try to control and you must try to avoid. But again, that is the learning experience that you get from the failures that you must not forget. It says failures are the pillars of success, we say. This is the actual thing. In the entrepreneurial development and leadership thing, failure experience is one of the most important things that we must consider in our life.
Good. May I invite Dr. Yes? Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Bauri.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
We are talking about institutional leadership.
Yeah.
What I have noticed is that every student who gets admitted in the college, he very closely observes the leader.
Yeah.
Number one, whether the leader is punctual. Number two, whatever the leader has promised, come what may, does the leader fulfill that promise? Number three, if you say something to your subordinates, are you doing the same thing? Or you're just expecting from the subordinates? I think once these observations are made by the student, they either put you on a pedestal or you are of no value to them. That's why they do not obey you. I don't think more than this I'll stop.
That's a very important answer. Walk the talk. What you say, you should do. That is a walk the talk, they say. And if you do something else, then what you say, nobody respects you. I think wonderful. Sudhanshu, would you like to make observation?
No, I mean, she's very much right that the leaders should prove themselves first. I mean, if you ask for the punctuality from teachers, and if leaders then should set an example, you have to be punctual, or honesty, or any such value, or change in behavior. If leader wants to be implemented, then first the behavior of a leader should change, I think.
Okay. Mohammed Ali, would you like to make some observation?
Yes, sir. One point I would like to.
Yeah.
Sir, new education policy is like to bring paradigm in the higher education in India. And sir, you have very rightly said that proven leaders will be required to implement the new education policy in India. So, sir, in the selection process, what we have been observing at this present moment, there is a lot of factors disturbing to select the proven leaders in a university and colleges, means principals and vice principals. It is now still on. So how the ideal new education policy could be properly implemented without the proven leaders? That is my question, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mohammed Ali, you have a point? Mohammed Ali?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sudhanshu Bhushan already told that some of the students are first generation learners, and the challenges for the institution will be different one, and just to put a lot of or undergo a lot of pressure for the college students in the parish. I agree with it, sir. And also, a leader, his presence definitely has impact on the various activities in the congregation, and even in his absence, the fact should play. So that will be a true leader, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other person would like to make observation? Then I'll give chance to Professor Sudhanshu Bhushan and Vikas. Just a minute, Vikas, wait. If you have any other question, because we will break for 10 minutes at around 8 o'clock. Yes. You have any other question? Any person have question? Sanjeev Gogoi, you wanted to talk, raise question? You are not audible. Gogoi, Sanjeev, you are not audible. Okay, Vikas, you go ahead.
Okay. Gigi, listen, I give you what happened. A brilliant professor came to give a lecture. Then he finished his lecture. One student stood up. Sir, you are just out of date by 1 day. What happened? What did I do? You know, the theory that you are talking yesterday was just contacted yesterday. It was based in the report.
Okay.
It is not. What do you do? Go to Google and ask yourself. You will see that they are giving you that this theory has just failed. Yesterday it was founded by new professor that it is not anymore. This is how the students can also teach the teachers how to update themselves. We did not with the latest news on this topic. That is the one that the teachers learned from that day onwards. That you must prepare yourself to come to the classroom. So that is the point that one of the students was asking. That they must come prepared to talk. And our students will teach them how to teach.
Okay, thank you. Sanjeev Gogoi, kindly put off your mic because it's making a lot of noise. Yes, please put off your mic. It's making noise. Yes, the Sudhanshu. Go ahead, then we'll break for 5 minutes, 10 minutes at 8 o'clock.
At 8 o'clock, okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
there was a very important question that, well, proven leadership, how do we get it when there are many obstacles to select the proven leaders? And I will, in the next part of the talk, I will be discussing precisely this point. And in my book that I have written after studying the governance, I have shown that there are many power centers within and outside the university. And the influence of power centers really sometimes act in collusion, sometimes in collision. So sometimes they cooperate, many power centers come together and influence decision making, and there are sometimes fight between two power centers. And in this whole process of governance, there is no good decision, there is no right decision. So I will give you examples in this second part after break, and I will also provide you a solution under this situation. What can we really do?
Okay, good. Shall we break now? Shall we break now for 10 minutes? We'll rejoin at 8:10, 8:15. Yeah, 8:15 because we are breaking at 8:05. Okay, thank you. Break in,
I now quit the session. And goodbye. Thank you very much for all the participants. I shall meet you again. I should keep off and on because I would like to be a part of all these sessions to make myself educated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, because your presence is very essential.
Yes, yes.
Because your presence is essential. Because Professor Munis Raja used to tell me one story. He said that when the carva moves, the elephant carva moves, they put oldest elephant on the front. I say, why? Because he is the wisest person. So other elephants follow. So you are the wisest person. So you have to be there. Okay, we break fast.
Ganesh traveled the whole world just in 2 minutes. Ganesh, remember? Ask them who can travel and bring the whole world to me.
Okay.
Okay, so we will come back at 8:15.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We join at 8:15.
Come back. Now, what I have been discussing is that there were two rational models of leadership, namely bureaucratic and the deliberative or democratic. And we found that there are problems in both the models. In real world, and the question was asked that in real world, the proven leaders are not selected. Why are they not selected? That is the question. They are not selected because in my research study, I noted that there are influence of power centers. So you might, I can give you, dozens of examples of how these influence of power centers operate, and the leadership fails. The rational decision making, whether through bureaucratic leadership or through deliberative leadership, fails. A principal wants to introduce good communication and respects everybody, the fellow teachers, students, all these things happen. But then what could be the problem? The problem could be that some of you said that we should respect leaders, students. That is the sign of a good leader. You should respect teachers. You should listen to them. But what will happen if there is some student leader who comes to you, who demands you something which within your rules and regulations you are not able to provide? What will happen? Suppose there is some group of teachers who hijack any agenda, any good thing being introduced by the principal, principal is the more spectator. So principal is not able to do. So all leadership style fails because in real situation, what happens that there are various power center of a student, power center of teachers in a college. Your management also may be a power center. That power center may not agree to the decision made by the principal. So in actual practice, the rational decision making and optimum governance, a good decision making really does not take place. And there are many examples, but let me give one or two examples. All of you know from your actual practice, from your actual experience, how the vice chancellor of a university is appointed. I need not say. There has been a very rational process of constituting a search committee. So UGC made a regulation on the search committee. And actually what happens, all of you know, there are many instances where the search committee selects vice chancellors who have been guilty of various misdeeds. I have found, there are many examples. I have found one example where someone was selected as vice chancellor who was crossed 70 years of age, who was convicted later on, went behind bars. I just don't need to say anything to you. One, you are all the observer. So the vice chancellors are appointed by certain ideology, by certain whims. Therefore there is no fairness in decision making, in the appointment of the vice chancellor. So, if the leader is not selected on the criteria of merit and free from bias, etc., what can we think of leadership? Leadership will fail, certainly fail. I can give you many examples. There is in the governance, there is a whole, how are colleges affiliated to an institution? How are B.Ed colleges being opened? Teacher education colleges being opened? From my experience, I observed, and from the research study, I observed that at one point of time in a state, an affiliation is granted very liberally to the teacher education college, hundreds. And then when that becomes a burden upon the government, then government wants to exercise control. And in exercising control, what it says is that you have not fulfilled this criteria so far, therefore I will not allow students to appear at the examination. And then the whole case becomes sub judice. The teacher educator college management goes to the court that government has given the affiliation, but government is not allowing my student to appear at the examination. And then the court takes a decision that no, you cannot stop students. The students have to be, it is no fault of the student. So court says that allow students to appear at the examination. There have been so many cases of promotion after the retirement, superannuation of a teacher. Teacher is not granted the benefits. And there was one example where I will not go into the details of the case because of the shortage of time, but the university does not provide benefits, pension, etc. The teacher goes to the court, and it so happened that during second or third hearing of the court itself, the person dies, the teacher dies in the premises of the court. Why? Because there were power centers working. They are in the university which prevented his pensions. or maybe for some monetary benefits or some other reason. They did not allow. And then the court summons all the vice chancellors, pro-vice chancellor, the registrars, the SPs and DMs of the respective district headquarters, and then sort of makes all sorts of announcements. That has become the situation where sub judice cases are rising, pending court cases are rising, pending educational court cases are rising, and therefore governance has become highly complex. I will not go much into it, but there are many such stories. I would also like to listen from you any such a story as to how the influence of power centers prevents good decision, prevents the able person to join to head as the institution, and so on. Now, if there is such a heavy influence of power centers, what can you do? Both rational models of leadership have failed. What can be done? Well, in my understanding, there is a way out. And this idea I get from the capabilities theory, which was propounded by Professor Amrita Sen and later supported by Martha Nussbaum. What are these capabilities? First of all, let us try to understand these capabilities are ability to be and ability to do. So these capabilities are nothing but the freedom of opportunities. The more freedom or choice of opportunities do you give to any individual, to your students, to your teacher, the more capable a teacher or a student is. And he defines even poverty also in terms of the deprivation of capability. Poverty is not whether you are able to take diet worth so much of calories. Poverty is not defined by the income criteria. According to him, a poor people is one who has been deprived of opportunities, who have no freedom of opportunity. That is his definition of poverty. So the loss of capability, the deprivation of capability need to be removed, need to be reduced, if not completely removed. So my argument is that please try to understand what are the capabilities of a teacher. Because if you make your teacher capable, if you make your colleagues capable, then these people themselves will become the leader. They will be empowered. They will automatically be ready to share. Automatically, by their own volition, they will be able to take up the leadership. Leadership is no longer becomes a burden of the principal, burden of the head of an institution. So what is most important is, what are the ways in which the capabilities of a teacher are encouraged? Or if they are deprived of capabilities, how do you ensure those capabilities? So what are those capabilities? Not much work has been done on this area to understand. Some of my research students have done on the capabilities of students, on the capabilities of teacher. Very few literature exists. But the capabilities or the opportunities of a teacher is, for example, the freedom to design a course, a freedom to collaborate, freedom to teach, freedom to participate in the seminar, freedom to, or the opportunity to have the required books in the library, and so on and so forth. Once you provide, you make your teachers capable, the head of an institution makes people capable then these people themselves become a resource, because now they are empowered person. And Amartya Sen has noted at one point, he writes that those persons who are empowered, they do not care for themselves more. An empowered person cares for others more, because they also feel the responsibility to the society. So any empowered person, a really empowered person, will not really be guided by the self-interest. I should get a promotion in this way or that way. Rather, he cares for the society, he cares for the others. So if you make teachers capable, then teachers will become a caring person for a principal. If there is any problem that a principal faces, teachers themselves unite, they make a team, and they share all the responsibilities of a college. So my proposition is that instead of really searching a leader and so on, and searching the ways a leader should act or take decision, whether in a bureaucratic or democratic model, I think if we really make efforts to make teachers capable, teachers empowered, then those 50 teachers, 100 teachers of a college begin to share their responsibility, and all of them in a way become a leader. So you don't have to really delegate. They themselves will come forward and feel that this is, they own the problem of an institution. So I think if something of this sort could be done, then perhaps much of the problem of decision making may be solved. So this is the point that I wanted to say in this part. I would like to...
Sudhanshu, do you think that there one very important distinction has been made? One is the capability, and other is the ability to do, the allowed to do. So capability, when we take it, capability, ability, the know-how, skill, and other aspects related to carry out the activity. And then whether you are allowed to carry out, whether you are allowed to express your thing is another aspect, allowed to do it. But first is, are they equipped enough to carry out the task which they are assigned, they are supposed to be. And then when the second question comes up about the allowed to do or the ability to do, then question comes of freedom of expressions, etc. So I don't know, I have not read the Amartya Sen, but question is that first is your know-how and skill and ability. That capability defines as the ability or know-how to frame the curriculum, know how to change the curriculum, know how to handle the, that is what we call capable. You are able to. Yes. Other is you are not allowed because of the structure, because of problems, etc. So you are. One is, sometimes one finds that even if you are allowed, they are not able to do it. So the first question comes up capability in terms of your know-how, skill, your ability. Secondly, you are allowed to express, allowed to free, that comes. So I think Amartya Sen might be referring to, one is empower the people in terms of ability to carry out the task very efficiently, etc. Whether in terms of developing curriculum, learning many things, or handling. Other is the structural and other limitation which come, they should be tried to do. I just got it some kind of clarity.
Thanks for raising this point. I really did not go into the deeper aspect, but Martha Nussbaum in her book defines two types of capability. One is internal capability and another is combined capability. So what is internal capability? Internal capability is the skill or the education that provides you, that gives you the capacity to do certain things. That is an internal capability, which means skill and education. Should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh. Confidence to do. Huh? Yeah, go ahead.
That ability to do, that is one point, skill that you have. The second, he talks about combined capability. where she says that there may be environment, there may be political factors, there may be structural factors which may prevent you actually to do certain things. Even if you have the ability, but you have not been able to do it because the environment did not support to you. And she gives a very elaborate example of a woman from, there is one cooperative in Gujarat that leads that Seva. She gives an example of Seva where that one woman had absolutely deprived vessel in terms of capability. Her husband was a drunkard, and then at some point of time her husband dies, and then she goes to live with the family members, and the family members also treat it very badly, and so completely deprived of all capability. Then there is one friend, then she is enrolled in Seva, and Seva provides them some skill, some training to the woman. So she then acquires the internal, the basic capability, and then the Seva also provides them some institutional framework, some institutional support, some support, funding support, etc. So Seva creates enabling conditions for her to actually work, actually give the opportunity, actually give this, substantive opportunity, substantive freedom. So, sir, you are very right that there are two types of capabilities, the internal or basic and the combined. Therefore, it is essential that in terms of rules, you may say that a principal is providing has circulated a rules and said that yes, you have the freedom to go to the seminar, you have the freedom to travel, etc. But if a principal also provides travel support, manages for the travel support, then principal overcomes their external hindrance. So the role in providing capability is that not only you provide opportunities in formal terms, but actually in substantive terms. You create conditions, supportive conditions that a teacher actually acquires the capability. And there is another distinction, again I am not going into that, a distinction between capabilities and functioning. So functionings are real, whereas capabilities are the set of opportunities. So for example, I have a set of opportunity to really work in a good environment, to have the transportation facilities, have the freedom to get the tuition and so on and so forth. So this is the set of opportunity. Now realized, if I become a teacher, becoming doctor is a functioning, which has already been realized. So Amrita Sen what says is that realization, before that realization, there is a capability, which is set of opportunity. And how do you actually provide the set of opportunity in order to realize? And another point is, in order to realize what a person wants to live. That is also important. What it means that a principal should not impose upon a teacher that you do this or that. Let teachers decide what it is that is good for him in order to be a good teacher, in order to be a good researcher. And then if you provide facilitative conditions and opportunities in order to realize himself or herself as a good teacher, then that is a function. So this distinction between capabilities and functioning needs to be met. So my proposition is that how can, and therefore my question is to you, is how can a principal, head of an institution, provide those capabilities in order to become an empowered teacher and who shares your responsibility and burden? So may I have few interventions from you?
Any question, any observation, any other Usman, any observation? Gogoi, you have some observation. Usman, you should also be ready, and then Diwan or any other person. Yeah. So Gogoi, go ahead.
One observation, sir. So far as the two model is concerned, one is, as you very rightly said, bureaucratic model, and the other one is participatory democratic model. I was the principal of a Gov-aided college for 16 years, and what I found, sir, I would like to share with you that Sir, I actually adopted, as per our training, I adopted participatory or democratic model. But sometimes I face a lot of problem in implementing the democratic model of leadership. Then sometimes I had to impose that bureaucratic model. So I would like to know from your end, and you are very rightly focusing on the point of this leadership issue, that is there any model of this, combination of the two, or how we can very rightly implement this democratic and bureaucratic model of leadership, sir?
Okay. Kotosh, would you like to make some observation?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Sudhanshu sir and Sharma sir. Sir, I have an observation, as Sudhanshu sir said that regarding institutions that, sir, I have to make a point that any institution that gets opened or that gets started in any area, it's as per the rules and regulations of the government. So I don't think so that should be a burden on the government, that if an institution is being opened, so it is as per the consent by the government, and the bureaucrat who is sitting on the top, he or she has to give the consent to open an institution. And if we talk about teachers, the capability to facilitate the teachers and capabilities of the teachers. So what I have learned in this sector, that I'm from Jammu and Kashmir. So what I've learned in this sector, that the degree in education, has not that much of importance in my area. So anybody who's not doing anything, was not going for any other degree, so he or she is into this, joins this program. Like chalo ji, this is a very basic term that people use. If somebody is not doing anything, then he or she says, chalo theek hai, let's go for B.Ed program. So we must aware these people from the very beginning that no, B.Ed is not such a degree, and education, teaching is not is not a simple profession, or it's the teachers build the nations. So that awareness must be there. I know that awareness is in the metropolitan cities, but in the cities like Jammu, that tier 2 cities, it's very difficult to have this awareness campaign, sir. So kindly suggest us that how we can improve the standard of education and standard of importance of this degree in our areas.
Very true, Kotosh. In fact, this is a real issue. How do I'm capable? Capable means awareness. Awareness is the first part of the capability, and then once you understand aware, then second part would be taken care. I think Sudhanshu will also respond. Any other questions if you have? Okay, so Dr. Sudhanshu, you go ahead. Any other, Sakya or Dr. Usman or Dr. Diwan or Dr. Pauri, any question if you have?
I have no question, but here is Rajiv Hendik, sir. Rajiv Hendik from Guwahati University is professor of history department. I want to, Hendik, sir.
Okay.
Hendik, sir.
Rajiv, would you like to say, make some observation? Rajiv, would you like to make, Hendik, would you like to make some observation? Okay, Usman or Dr. Biwan?
I'm fine, sir. I have no question.
Sir, I have an issue.
Yeah.
That is actually the development of multiple de facto power centers over a period of time is a stumbling block in the case of institutional leadership. Because all these de facto multiple power centers are controlled by external forces or other interests. It may be politics, it may be some other interest and so on. So even the capability theory cannot be applied in that context. Because if your stakeholders are divided in this fashion, or they join in these type of groups, which are very powerful because they are de facto, anything de jure. So this has taken place over time in the case of the universities, because I have been a member of the various statutory bodies of the universities. I have felt that even the capability theory, or we are actually we are put in chains. We can't act in that way. So the multiplicity of these power centers, this is the most important issue.
Yeah.
I feel. Okay, sir.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. You are really touched on a very de facto and de jure. There are de jure power centers and there are de facto power jure. De jure power center could be made accountable for their mistakes, but de facto power centers are very difficult to be made accountable. That's another complexity of the issue. When you have de jure, they definitely are accountable for certain things, but de facto are like air. Sometimes they are not accountable, and that's a real complex issue. That becomes a complex issue. Okay, that Dr. Biwan or Dr. Bauri or Dr. Sanjeev, your friend was referring, Dr. Sanjeev, your friend was referring that Sanjeev might like to make some observation. Dr. Biwan?
Sir, I have no question, sir.
Okay, okay, good. Sanjeev, would you like to make observation? Because Sakya was referring to Sanjeev. Dr. R.C. Sharma, would you like to make some observation? Okay. If there are no observations, then let Sudhanshu complete his presentation, the discussion.
Okay. The first question was that a participatory model was tried out and he found problems in participatory model, again because of some dominant center of power. And then he said that sometimes bureaucratic model became necessary and authoritarian rule became necessary. Now again, as I said, there is no formula that can be given. It has to be practiced based on your experience, based on your practical rationality. What is the context? You will have to understand the context, and then you will have to take a decision in consultation with various people, stakeholders. And if you find that, it also depends upon the short run versus long run, for example. So in the short run, if you have to achieve something, then you have to have your authority. Then you can't go on deliberating and being democratic. But in the long run, something has to be implemented, then you have to have patience and have to have the democratic type of decision-making process. So you will have to decide yourself depending upon the short run and the long run, depending upon the context, depending upon the problem that you are handling, and so on. You'll have to decide what model will really work. But as I said, I mean, these two rational models are bound to fail. Best thing is to develop the capability. That is my...
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, very important point made. Dr. Usman, issue is really of making people capable and making them understand, as you said, that understand the importance of their being. Sometimes those their being are not feeling important. So outside forces misguide them. Outside forces give them some kind of incentive, wrong incentive. Sometimes it doesn't really realize, and that's why they get misguided. So that dialogue has to take place wherein we are able to tell that these outside influences which are coming in an unaccountable manner. If it comes from accountable manner, you can always go for just education. But if it is non-accountable, they are not accountable for the failure of the person who is trying to raise the issue. So I think a lot of dialogue would be needed in such cases. I know these unaccountable persons or those who are outside person, they have their inroads into the system, and that inroads have to be blocked. They have to be frustrated. I believe in a system of this, you have to. They have a plan to disturb you, and if you have another plan to frustrate them, then they keep out. So that's you have to. And these systems, these ideas which we are discussing, they help you to go into the depth of the issues and then say, okay, they are trying to and empower the people in terms of understanding and also making them. You would find in some of the places he has given the example of Europe and USA and other countries. If you find that outside influences are trying to influence the teachers of this country, it just doesn't happen. They are so much enlightened in their profession that they say, no, it doesn't work. And they will not take it. So if we can make our people of that, no, I don't want to have this kind of it is the incentive which you are talking, then things would turn out and then system would change. But it's very difficult, very complex. But one should try on that way. Dr. R.C. Sharma, yeah, Uskan, you wanted to say something? Usman,
no, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. R.C. Sharma?
No, thank you, sir. I think our colleagues, they can relate to what Professor Sudhanshu Bhushan, I was muted. I was saying that our friends, they can relate to their experiences in the light of what Professor Bhushan has guided. They are very relevant, and accordingly they can examine that how these things they can be implemented in the field, because they are the actual people who would like to have these things implemented in practical aspects.
What are you experiencing in the university of this kind of situation, Dr. Rama?
I have mixed opinions and some controversial opinions, because I know some of the vice chancellors, they used to say that student is our prime thing, care for student, etc. And I hugely differ from that. I say that, and particularly I like the statement by the CEO of Virgin Atlantic, Mr. Richard Branson. He says that you take care of your employee, they will take care of your customer. So I believe that you take care of your employee, the other thing they will follow. If you just ignore your employee and you just keep singing about customer or student or this, that, nothing is going to happen. And that's why the education system is in jeopardy, because you don't pay attention to the real cause. Let me give you one more example. What is happening nowadays? This automobile industry, it is one of the biggest in a way money minting from the people. Mr. Mistry, he just passed away. Everybody is talking about rear seat belt, this bag, airbag, this bag on the head, on the arms, all around bag. Oh, why don't you just have balloons all around you? Nobody is talking about the vehicle was on high speed. They are not talking about controlling the speed. Because there are two industries they are benefiting from there. Number one, they are saying that you should have rear seat belt and more airbags because the company will sell them to you. So you pay and the company gets the money. And why they are not talking about the speed? Because if you control the speed, then the company will get into the loss.
Yeah.
Slow speed. They want every car to run within 10 seconds up to 1000 miles per hour. All the vehicles, all the two-wheelers, four-wheelers, whatever, if you see their advertisement, speed is one of the main component of there. How fast my vehicle runs, this, that. Nobody talks about go slow. I believe you, even if there is no seat belt, I have never heard in my life that anybody died while cycling or something because it is slow speed. You know why people die in accidents? Due to fast speed, not due to the absence of seat belt. If you run carefully, so, you know these things. So we talk about those things which do not address the real problem. And
yeah, very good, Dr. Sharma, very good. That's right. I have a habit of provoking people, and I'm glad that I provoked you. The reason being that you have come out a very good point that capably making people capable that you understand the game of others.
Yes.
That what Sudhanshu said, that make the people capable, make the teachers capable. What is the game of others? To misguide you. And the game of others is to misguide you. And if you are intelligent enough, I'm glad that you made this. When we are talking of capability in terms of teachers, in terms of individual person, in terms of a student, you should make them intelligent enough to see the other's game. And if you are able to see the other game, then you will frustrate them. That is the real issue. I'm glad that I wanted to provoke you that it is not the issue of seat belt. It is the issue of seat belt is from the interest of the money, interest of the selling. The real issue is the speed. Real issue is the the driving at a great speed and in a fatigued manner. That is the real issue. That has to be. So it means
but we don't.
You have to understand. You have to understand the game. And that game, if you can understand game either in as a citizen or game as a teacher, game as a student, I think that would make the people more capable and able to take certain decisions more effectively. I think go ahead, Professor Sudhanshu. Thank you.
I like this statement. I think Dr. Mokhim said it or someone said it, that the good quality of a leader is to create other leaders.
Yeah, that's what Bhivan said.
It is not happening.
Bhivan said.
Once you put a person in the seat of a higher capacity, they will make it sure that nobody replaces them.
So your transformative leadership is the real answer. Given us okay, we come to the.
They want to stick to their chair. That it is my chair. Like
okay. Let's have Sudhanshu. Then now let's come to 5 minutes are left. If few more questions are there, otherwise let Sudhanshu respond finally.
Yeah, no, there are 2 or 3 doubts I would like to, give my understanding. One is that
sir.
Yes.
May I speak, sir? May I speak? I want to say that, sir, if we want to create leaders from our educational system or to extend the capabilities of the teacher, we have to modernize our examination system. Our education system is so much exam-centric, and it is the people actually expect that education is only for jobs. So, how can we have to think about to free the education from the shackles of examination, and we have to change our mindset that education is only to get a job. Otherwise, I think the capabilities of the teacher will never be noticed, because they always strictly follow the curriculum only to shine in the result sheet, in their names of the institution in the result sheet. So that is the another real situation. Thank you, sir.
That's an excellent point that you have made. So I have got only 2 minutes.
No, you can go ahead, my friend. You take your time.
I am still in the first part of my discussion, but anyway, I'll try to wrap it up in just 2-3 minutes. See, there is one confusion whether we live in a rule-determined society. Yes. So we have to follow the rules. But how can we go beyond the rules? That was the question, that if an institution is opened in an area, this is the decision taken by a bureaucrat. So that decision has to be followed, no doubt about it. But what is more, Amrita Sen again makes a distinction between two, a Niti-based system and a Nyaya-based system. So Niti-based system is a system based on rules and regulations. You only follow the rules. It is your duty to follow the rules. Whereas what is being said in terms of capability approach is, how can you create a Nyaya-based system? Yes, rules we will follow. We are not going to oppose the rules. But within a given framework of constitution, within a given framework of the act of the university, within a given framework of the college, memorandum of understanding, etc., how can we make our system closer to actual realization of certain things? So I'm not saying do not follow the rules. We do follow the rules, but within a given rule, how can we be more and more sensitive to the actual situations? That I think is important. With respect to multiple power centers, there are certainly covert and overt power centers and all sorts of power centers. Now, here the point is as follows. The point is that there is an agency and there is a structure. So their power centers, etc., are in a way a structural constraint which does not allow the agency of a teacher to work. That is the point. But change process takes place with a dialectical interaction of both agency and structure. Sometimes a structure changes and then the change takes place. Sometimes even agency may become the catalytic for change. So the point that is being said is that in terms of, even if there are multiple power centers, covert and overt and so on, the agency may take certain change process, can initiate certain change process, and this change process will have again some effect on the structure. In fact, Avijit Banerjee in Poor Economics, there is a chapter on schooling, there he writes whether it is politics that determines policy or it is policy that determines the politics. And he says that yes, politics may be a constraint, there may be a bad politics. So there may be a structural constraint, but we can take a smaller policy decision. While he was advocating for randomized control trial, he says that through randomized control trial, all that we are doing is that take a small decision, which may perhaps change the politics also in the long run. So we cannot fall into the trap of circular reasoning, whether it is politics that determines policy or policy that determines the politics. So from that point of view, I appeal that to that extent capability has some role to play. But of course, it cannot really change the structure in one day or short span of time. There was another just reflection on the degree and capabilities and so on. Yes, you are right that we have become degree centric, we have become exam centric, whole curricula is guided by that and so on. So again here my point is that there are structural constraints, but within the limits of a structural constraint, how can we create a space for developing, for becoming an agent of change by developing the capabilities and so on. So let there be no confusion that we do follow rules, but perhaps we need to also orient ourselves towards the consequences, towards the actual realization. And my second point is that even if there are structural constraints, perhaps agentic change at the level of agency may also initiate the whole process of change. That's all I would like to stop.
Thank you.
I wanted to discuss many things, I mean multidisciplinarity and so on, but maybe
there'll be some other opportunity.
Well, yes. And I'm very, very thankful to all of you who have made this very interactive and very participative and engaging. So thank you all.
Dr. Sharma, you can conclude the session now. Dr. Sharma is managing the session. R.C. Sharma.
Thank you, sir. Friends, at the outset, I would like to express my thanks to Professor Sudhanshu Bhushan ji for sharing his thoughts. And really, our participants must have benefited a lot from there. And thank you, friends. We are very happy to see you today in such a large numbers. And thanks to all of you to make this interaction quite lively and purposeful. So see you again in the next session. Till then, take care.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
People joined. Thank you very much. Thank you. Many people joined. Almost 20 to 21 people were there at times. Thank you. Thank you very much. Join it next time. Gogoi, good. Gogoi embassy. I think Sasikant and Gogoi.